Hello, I'm here with Sheffield Central MP Paul Blomfield talking about the upcoming NUS demonstration on the 19th of November. Okay, firstly, do you think the demonstration can make a difference?
I think it's important that people raise their voices when they're not happy with government policy. I mean, I joined 100,000 people recently on the TUC demonstration in London because there are deep concerns about the way that government economic policy are impacting on people, and I think it's right that those concerns should be expressed.
In terms of that, with Nick Clegg's obviously U-turn in terms of raising tuition fees, what are your personal opinions on that issue?
Well, I've always argued against increasing tuition fees. I think that given the way that we have expanded higher education, there is a need to involve students in making a contribution, but I think it should be done fairly. Not with high tuition fees, which act as a disincentive. I've always argued in favour of a graduate tax, which means that people will pay a little bit more on their income tax after they graduate, but they don't go into university with a fear of debt, and they don't have to pay back what they need to borrow to get there.
I mean, in terms of that, with the tuition fees, obviously there's a system of loans in place, but not to postgraduates. Do you think that there should be a system in place due to the current position?
I think funding of postgraduates is a really important issue. It's one that I've spoken on in Parliament, and I was at a launch event for a new report on postgraduate education that's been published this week. With the expansion of higher education, I know that many students need to distinguish themselves in an increasingly competitive graduate marketplace, and they're doing so by undertaking a master's programme. And if we are restricting those programmes simply to people who can fund themselves, who have the personal wealth to do that, then we're dealing a body blow to social mobility. So I think it's really important that we put in place a proper funding mechanism to be able to support students in postgraduate study.
In relation to that, with the high costs that are currently introduced for such students, do you think that could lead to a form of elitism, like you just mentioned about obviously people that can fund themselves? Do you think elitism is something that could arise?
Well, I do. That under the current system, there's a real fear that the good work that I think we did as a Labour government between 1997 and 2010 in expanding opportunities through opening up undergraduate education will be undone if those opportunities don't also exist for taught masters in particular, but also for those who want to go on to research programmes.
This march is focusing quite highly on international students in terms of, maybe sort of like excluding them in certain areas, like which has been mentioned in the press. Do you think that's like a big issue that needs to be raised at this demonstration?
I think international students is a hugely important issue. It's one that I have been campaigning on, probably leading campaigning on in Parliament. I think that the very short-sighted approach that this government has to the way that it has changed the student visa regime, to the way that it has acted against London Metropolitan University, to the way that it has closed down post-study work opportunities, is sending a message around the world to international students that you're not welcome in the UK. And that's not true. Apart from the contribution they make to the intellectual discourse in our universities, the contribution they make to research, the cultural richness that they bring, they also bring £180 million to the local economy. Hugely important. And it's foolish and counterintuitive for the government to be discouraging international students. I feel very strongly about the issue. And I'll be pleased to see it raised in the demonstration.